Welcome back to the House Fires Movement podcast, where our whole goal is to revive the church and reveal God's heart. I'm Leah, and I'm here with friends Leana.
Hello.
CJ.
What's up?
And Nick.
What's going on?
That was quiet. And today we're talking all about worship and entertainment.
Come on.
Why are we talking about this today, guys?
Because CJ wants to. No,
Oh, yeah. Yes.
CJ told us.
because it's an amazing topic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and a
It's
problem.
relevant. Super
Definitely
relevant.
Needed. Definitely
Yeah.
needed in our culture today. So
Yeah. Hopefully we'll unveil more about why we're talking about this as we move through the episode and
Yeah.
you see the burden of this. But yeah, let's start with just some definitions of what we're defining as worship and what we define as entertainment. Nick, do you have some definitions
Sure, I'd
for
be happy
us?
to. I looked up the definition of entertainment. Like if I just went to the dictionary and looked up what entertainment is, okay? And I want you to think of this through the light of like, does this sound familiar?
Yeah.
In some of our context, okay? So here's the definition of entertainment. It's an activity designed to give pleasure or relaxation to an audience, no matter whether the audience participates passively, as in watching the opera or a movie, or actively, as in games. It's a show put on for the enjoyment or amusement of others.
wow.
Ooh,
Sounds
that's entertainment.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, we'll have to unpack that. Now, here's. I mean, you could probably define worship a handful of different ways, but here's a definition that I have seen that I like. Can I go ahead and do that as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it.
Worship refers to the service and devotion rendered to God by the whole of life.
Wow.
I'll say that again. Worship refers to the service and devotion rendered to God by the whole of life. And I think one thing that we will highlight with that is that Old Testament, New Testament, you are offering, it is an act of offering something to God because of the service and devotion that you are giving to Him,
Yeah.
right? So you are offering something. Make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Entertainment, you get. Worship, you give.
Yeah.
Simplified.
Say that again.
Yeah. Say that.
Entertainment, you get. Worship, you give. Makes sense?
So good. Yeah.
Yes.
How's that definition?
Great. Great.
Wonderful.
So you've given a definition of worship that is larger than maybe what the typical person might think of when they think of worship. Typically, we might think of, a band on stage during a Sunday service for 3 songs at the beginning and 2 songs at the end. That is worship. But we're saying something else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
CJ, are you saying something else?
I am definitely saying something else. Yeah, you're totally right, Leah. Usually when you ask someone or say it's worship time or it's time to worship, we automatically go to the singing of songs and the vision that you just painted for us, instead of really understanding biblically what the scriptures call us and explain to us what worship is it's a total life response to the Lord. Love, obedience, and surrender. And if I can clarify, it's rooted in His worthiness of who He is, not just in what He's done for us.
Yeah.
Come on.
And so that's extremely important to understand, is that it's not just what He's done, because He has done great things, but we worship and we live because of His worthiness of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's extremely important that we understand that it's a posture before it's a performance, and it encompasses every area of our life.
Right.
Because He's worthy of it.
Right.
Yes. That
Yeah.
makes me think of Romans 12. Therefore, I
come on.
urge you, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship.
Right. And that builds upon, we were talking about this, that builds upon, when you jump into Romans in this context of like the phrases that he's using in that verse, he's building upon their understanding of the Old Testament forms of worship, which just think about even some of the references in the Old Testament to worship. Like it says that when Abraham was about to offer Isaac on the altar, that was an act of worship, right?
Yeah.
When they're making the sacrifices in Leviticus, those are acts of worship. When they're coming out of Egypt and he says, hey, I want you to do, all these things and have a celebration and offer a sacrifice. That's how they worshiped the Lord, right?
Yes.
And so they were constantly offering something to the Lord, and usually to make sure that there was not a proximity issue, right? Like, and then he picks that up in Romans and he builds upon it, and he's like, hey, now instead of just offering, goats and all these different things for sacrifices, he says, offer your bodies as living sacrifices.
Yeah.
And this is your act of worship. So you even get in Paul's brain when he says, offer your bodies as a what? Living sacrifice.
Yeah.
That implies that worship offers a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Worship is costly,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
By definition.
So if that was some of the original intent of how worship was done, it was costly, it was laying stuff down, it was on the altar. How do we get from that to what we typically see where these lines of worship and entertainment are blurred in our churches today?
Yeah. I really think it's a bleeding of the culture.
Like
that we're-
American culture?
the American culture that we're in. Because if we're being honest, the culture is a very consumeristic, me-centered
Yeah.
culture. And it's shaped our gospel, and it's shaped the way that we, quote unquote, do church. And so now we're going in, as we said earlier, thinking of worship as what can I get? Or it's heavily influenced by our preferences.
Yeah.
Which true worship, you put your preferences on the altar, you
Come on.
offer them to God,
Yeah.
because it doesn't really matter what your preferences are of, oh, that's too loud, that's, that's this, it's to this or to that. Well, it's not about you. We're giving something to God. And I always think of David in 2 Samuel 24:24, where he refuses to give God anything that could cost him nothing. And a lot of the times in the American church, worship, pertaining even not just to song, but to life, it's going to cost you your preferences.
Sure. And
So-
I totally agree with that. But sometimes, obviously the churches that are doing this, they don't like, oh, we are a consumeristic church. That's not what they're saying. They're saying like, oh, this is just what our church likes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Or this is how
Or
we
we-
get people engaged.
Yeah.
Right?
Or they're doing things in excellence.
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
Like we do everything in excellence.
Fog equals excellence.
Yeah.
Got to have the glory cloud.
That's right.
It's the haze.
And
What's the problem, guys?
I think it is times where I pray that it would be people with good intentions, but just because our intentions are good doesn't mean that what we're doing is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like going back to, okay, what is the purpose? And I think a huge part of that too is like we're trying to draw people in
Yeah.
instead of drawing him in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's part,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
marriage of what you said.
For sure.
And like how we got here by being shaped by the culture, but like we've got our eyes on of like how do we get more
Yeah.
people here
Yeah.
and engaged?
And I think there's a line there too, is you said it, just because you have good intentions does not mean it's biblical.
Yeah.
And so going back to even like what we talked about, the difference between entertainment is what do I get out of it, and worship, which is what does God get out of it? Like what can we give?
Right.
It comes down to, is it God-centered or is it audience-centered?
Yeah.
And so you can say, oh, we do everything in excellence, and you can say we're doing it for God, but but we have to be honest with ourselves and go to this place where we say, okay,
Yeah.
are we putting in the lights? Are we turning on the fog machine? Are we doing all these things because we wanted to look aesthetically pleasing
Yeah.
to who? God? Or are we trying to do it because we want people to be drawn in and want to participate and want it to look a certain way, and we're trying
Yeah.
to attract, and we're trying to basically bring what the people want
Yeah.
and not what God is desiring.
Which, it's like all about what's our goal here.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
the goal more people in the pews, more money in the plate, more money, even money that can make a good impact, right? Like, I think sometimes we like, oh, that's so bad, but it probably came from some motive that was not all bad, you know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, but it turned into something that is not what God wants.
Yeah.
Could I propose another possibility?
Yeah.
What if it's because our lack of understanding of what it means to worship has led us to the need to entertain?
Yeah.
Say more on that.
Yeah.
I'll read a Tozer quote. How's that sound?
Of course you will.
Perfect.
Tozer says, "The church that can't worship must be entertained, and the men who can't lead a church to worship must provide the entertainment."
Bang.
And I feel like when we don't actually know how to worship, which is sparked by an understanding of God, it leads to the need to entertain people. When people don't understand how to worship, then they're coming in and needing to receive something that they're expecting someone else to give them. This is just in a gathering context, right?
Yeah,
Like, again, because that's the framework. I'd even challenge the listener. Like, when you hear the word worship, what comes to your mind? Even if you know what's right and wrong, when you hear that word worship, what immediately comes into your mind? And I think it's telling when we've trained ourselves. Like, for most of us, it's like, oh man, I'm in a room, lights, worship, hands raised, music, hands raised, band. Like, that's what comes into our minds. And I think some of that is rooted in the fact that is praising God, and song is a form of worship and has always been. Old Testament, New Testament, that is a form of worship. And I think a form of worship that we can't not call worship, because it is. But there were many forms of worship. I mean, the early church, baptism was worship, feet washing was worship. The Lord's Supper was worship. The gathering and breaking bread was worship. Preaching and prophecy, those were all forms of worship that we see in the Bible. This was something that they were offering, right? But if I haven't been taught and trained of what worship is, then I think the natural inclination is a room full of people who are going to be looking to be entertained. And then someone needs to provide that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's probably just a buildup to over time of these things that are happening, and it results in an unhealthy way of doing things. So yeah.
Where's this line? Like, I feel like I see this like, okay, where's the line between creating environments for people to connect with God and I'm creating an experience without God, like for people to get goosebumps. You know what I mean? Like, where's the line of like that?
So, yeah, when I think of that and that question, I just think of heart posture and like, what is the true intent of the heart? And I think that we all need to ask, truly, what is your intention in this? Because I feel like you said, it could be this fine line where we've been doing something with that heart posture, but then it shifts because we're so used to this movement. We're so used to this way of worship. And I think it really goes down to that because I feel there's creative gifts in the body that should be expressed and are beautiful. And when you do it for the glory of God, it is such a beautiful thing. But also, is it truly for the glory of God? Is it truly that we're doing this for Him? Or are we doing it so we can move people or so we can create this atmosphere, right? So yeah, I just go down to heart posture. I think we need to be really honest. Like when it says, Lord, search my heart, see if there is any hidden wicked thing in me. I think it's so easy to like pass that line. And we need to be a people who are constantly making sure, like, what do we talk about that plumb line? Lord, have we moved from this plumb line? Are we doing this truly for you? Or now is it about us? And I just think when we were mentioning what is worship, there was this quote that I heard that said, if you do not know the purpose of something, you will abuse it. So if we don't understand it, so I love how you hit on that. What is the purpose of worship? Because if we're not understanding the purpose of why we worship and what worship is, then we're going to abuse it and we're going to use it for our means of satisfaction.
Yeah, that's good. Can I just kind of lean on that real quick? And kind of what, Nick, you said, and then what you said, kind of like the narrow understanding of the definition or the purpose of it. I believe what we're seeing is kind of maybe just byproducts of that. And if I can talk about just like these points real quick that I kind of wrote down of like what we're seeing. And so when you have a narrow definition of what worship is, or you don't quite understand the purpose, what you can do is make worship an event based instead of life based.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
And so it becomes just a moment or an event, or like, oh yeah, it's time, instead of actually like it reflecting it throughout your life, not just that night. I believe you can begin to place more weight on style, atmosphere, what you're talking about, or production than on the heart posture, like you just said.
Yeah.
And then one of the big ones is that you confuse emotional engagement with true spiritual surrender. So
on.
it goes back to kind of preference too, where you start to view like, because I didn't feel something specific,
Yes.
people, how was worship today? And you can basically say, hey, it's like, well, the question we probably should be asking is not so much as the people of like, oh, how was worship? But the question is like, was God pleased? Not so much as like,
Yes.
were you pleased in worship today? But it's like, well, was God pleased in my
yes.
offering to him
on.
of what I was giving him? And so it creates a consumer mindset where we start thinking about that. Well, how
Yeah.
did worship make me feel?
Yes.
Well, was God pleased?
Yeah.
That should be our primary focus. So if we walk away from that, with that question, instead of, God, were you pleased? Like,
Yes.
what we offer you, Lord, what we gave you today, was it pleasing to you? Was it like just a fragrance offering? Like, was it pleasing to you? And so I feel like if you have a narrow definition of that, or a lack of understanding the purpose, you were spot on. You will begin to abuse it, and it'll create unhealthy fruit pertaining to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I loved how you said that the definition is like, does it please God?
Yes.
And because so often we define in success and failure based on, again, going back to that definition of what we do or do not get, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's bad. We know like in 1 Samuel 16, like Saul was tormented by demons. And in order for that to be soothed, David had to play his harp a certain way, because it was like there was something about like the atmosphere that happened when David played.
Yeah.
It soothed David or Saul's demons. Like, so I don't want to completely demonize like atmosphere, because I think there's something to
For sure.
atmosphere for certain and specific things.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily bad, but I liken it this way: like when you're living a lifestyle of worship, not a moment or a gathering of, but when your lifestyle is laid down and you're offering sacrifices to the Lord, he gives back. Like, this is the crazy thing, is you don't do it for the gift, but he gives back. And I liken it to like the example of like, man, when you have a good father who's like, coming back from a business trip, and every time he comes back, he gives you a gift. Like at first, a good son would go, oh my goodness, thank you, Dad. Like, I just want to like love you and do whatever you want me to do, because you are so amazing. You like, thank you for this. I don't deserve this. And your attention is on the father, right? The father does that enough. And the temptation is, oh, dad's in the room. So, what do you got for me?
Yes.
Right?
Oh my
Like,
goodness.
That's so
I
good.
want the gift, right?
Such a good.
And
Come
you
on.
shift from, your attention being on the father and offering whatever you have to him because he's so good. You've just experienced that.
Yeah.
And you shift it to the attention being on the gift
Yeah.
and the thing that you receive. And so I think that maybe in my head is the example of like, well, what's the line? I don't know, but I know that atmosphere isn't all bad. If we're just, and again, I don't want to just limit our discussion on worship to like a gathering and song, right? But if we're talking gatherings, because it's biblical, they gathered and they worshiped in a lot of different ways when they gathered. If we're talking that, I don't know. I don't want to demonize atmosphere, because that is something. But I know that when you do it the right way, God really shows himself in amazing ways. And if you're not careful, you can focus on the gift and not the Father.
Yeah.
And so I think we just got to be careful. It goes back to what Leana said. There's that heart posture that you check. What am I defining as success? I'm just like, it's Leana, it's CJ, what they were saying. Heart posture, what she said. CJ, defining success as not what God can give us, but what we can give back to the Lord, right?
Come on.
That's so good.
I don't think it answers black and white, but because I don't know that there's a black and white answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's
Totally. So for someone listening who is like, I don't know if I am engaging in worship for entertainment, some of our tail signs we might have already suggested is you come with a consumeristic heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you come to get something from God,
Not to give.
not to
Yeah.
give.
Yeah.
What are some other tail signs of
Yeah.
you might be in this entertainment slump?
I think I've heard when people say, I just couldn't get into worship. I just couldn't feel him.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I could be in the middle of nowhere. Like, I've been to all different, and not that it's just about a gathering, but let me use the gathering as one example. I have been in Southern churches. I have been in Hispanic churches. I have been in white churches. I have
Have you been in Italian
every-
churches?
I have not.
I'm
That's
offended.
a new one I need to put on the list. But like, you know, you
The
just
hand gestures, I can
encounter
just see 'em now.
Everywhere.
hands everywhere.
So many hands.
I would love
So
that
loud.
then. That would be my kind of place. But it's just so funny because even when I've been in more conservative, quote unquote, or like very eccentric, like it was never about me. It was always about him. So like, I don't care if we're on the floor. I don't care if we're dancing. If we're going to sit there and be silent, I might stand up and be the awkward one. I don't care because it's always been about him. I'm like, how can I not stand up and worship you? How can I not give you praise? Like I should be dead and now I'm alive. Like I feel like that transaction that I had with the Lord when he like made himself known to me, or when I finally opened my eyes, like that was so real to me. So my life has been like this life of worship of like, I will always praise and glorify you, like whether I feel like it or not, because there's seasons. I love how you hit on that. Like, what, just because you don't feel his presence or you don't feel something in the room? I feel like the greatest act of worship is when you feel nothing and yet you still press in and it's you are worthy. And I don't care if I don't feel you or hear you in this season. I know that you are God. I know that you are good and you will never leave me. You will never forsake me because that's your word. And I'm not going to be moved by what I feel, but I'm going to be moved by the word of truth. And that's where my worship comes from. And I feel like even in that season, there was such depth of like this radical roar that was just built inside of me of like, it didn't matter what I felt or saw. I knew who he was in such a deeper way then. And it's like, if you are going based off of what you feel, you're missing out. You're missing out on so much because like he wants to make himself known in such a deeper way, but you're at the surface. And it's like, you need to go deeper. So I don't know. I feel like I went in
No,
another
it
direction,
shows.
but-
But would you say
Yeah.
like it kind of shows the immaturity when those are kind of the
Yeah.
things that are getting, you know, mentioned? I mean, let's
Yeah.
just call a spade a spade. Like, do you think Abraham felt like sacrificing his son Isaac? No.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, come
do you think
on.
Jesus felt like going to the cross?
Come
We know
on.
he didn't because he said as much, right?
Yeah.
Do you think like when Paul's saying offer your body as a living sacrifices, when they made sacrifices, it was bloody. Like
Yes,
it was a
yes.
violent, it was uncomfortable,
Painful,
something was
yes.
dying, right? Like, do you think when he's making that phrase, he's like, don't worry, it'll feel good. Like, no, like, now I'm not saying like you don't ever like feel, you know, good things, but I think to your point, like, how do I know if you are constantly worried about what you're feeling, you probably have a very surface level understanding of what it truly means to worship the King of Kings, you know?
Yeah. And I would even add on too, and this is not for everybody, but one thing I have seen is when certain environments are the only time when you can worship. I've
That's a good
seen
one.
people who are raised up within that entertainment style who they can worship like crazy within that moment, but you get them in a room where the lights are on and there's just a guitar or someone's banging on a box. They can't worship unless it's only when certain environments or situations are met. And to me, it's like what you were saying, whether you're in your car or whether you're just walking down the street or whether the lights are on or off, you should be able to worship one because he's worthy. Like we said, it's not really so much about what it looks like and how you're feeling, like you were saying in the moment. And so I've seen that too, where people are trained where they can only worship in certain environments.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sign for me is that you don't have, maybe you just lack the understanding of what the purpose is, and it's more of you and less of God.
Or even like if you're asking that question and the only thing you're thinking about when you're asking it is when you're inside of a room with a service, I think that's an indication.
Yeah.
Like if that's where your mind's going, like, man, how if here's another definition. Sorry, I'm giving you a bunch now on the top of my head. Are you unfaithful? Like if you're like, oh man, I'm a worshiper, but you don't lay your body down as a living sacrifice for your spouse. You're not a worshiper, man. Like hate to say it, but I don't care how rowdy or how amazing your voice is when you're in a room full of people or how high your hands are raised. If you go home and your wife does the dishes every single night and you're like, I don't feel like doing the dishes. I could, but I don't feel like it. You're not worshiping.
Yeah.
Like your act of worship is, what if it's as simple as that? Like, are you offering your life as a living sacrifice when you don't feel like doing it?
Yes.
You may not, and we see this a lot. I feel like, chime in here on this, but I feel like we see this a lot even when in young people. Man, they jump and they jump and they jump and they jump because they're like, oh, well, I just don't feel like that worship is where, but I really felt something when I went to this place and it's amazing. And then we look at their lives and this isn't all of them, like so many of them though, you're just so many things. You can't hold a job. You're unfaithful. You're not showing up on time. You're not serving the body and your friends. And then that's your definition of worship. Like you actually don't understand worship.
Yeah.
You just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that we've, going off of that in somewhat of a slightly different direction, but having those moments or having consistent encounters or these worship moments, but then it not going anywhere from there. Like it's not leading you into more intimacy, more depth. You can have all these moments, but if you're not praying, if you're not, reading, if you're not having prayer time or quiet time, if it's not leading to something more outside of that,
when you don't feel like it,
then what's happening there? What's the disconnect? What's going on? And it could be, and most likely is that your idea of what worship is and the purpose behind it, once again, is it's not aligned with biblical standards.
I'd actually even welcome, like, if you're like, man, I just don't feel like it. I'd be like, good. Now you're actually starting to worship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Come on.
worship costs you something.
Yeah.
So if you're like, man, I don't feel like doing this, that's actually at the point when you're actually probably able to truly press in worship.
Yeah.
Because now it's costing you. Now it's a sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
I always think about it. It's like when you don't feel like going to church is the most important time to go to church. Like, right? Like you think about those moments, tired, all these different things of not to meet up with your community, whether it's church or community. Like that is the time that you should press through because it's like, okay, why is the enemy keeping you from this? Worship. If you don't feel like it, what's on the other side of your obedience? Because guess what? Obedience doesn't just always, I feel like doing it. No, obedience, you do it and you do it out of a willing heart. And the Lord, like what he can do in that moment, humbling you, whatever it is that God's going to do, like, why not just get rid of yourself? That is being a living sacrifice. You die. It's not about you. You die. You were buried. And then Christ rises within you. So
Come on. So good.
Yeah. And the biblical worship even isn't, we've touched on a little bit. We can't limit it to just that moment of, singing to the Lord. You can worship God in how you work.
Yeah.
That's right.
You can worship God in how you treat others.
Yeah.
You can worship God in how you obey, especially when no one's watching.
Yeah.
You can worship God in basically how we sacrifice for God's purpose. And then even like you were saying, we worship God by how we endure through trials when we don't feel like it. Man, you can't get much more you can't sacrifice more in those moments when you just everything in you says no, and yet you still choose to obey and you still choose to press in, you still choose to seek him. Like what a beautiful picture of worship because it's so costly in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like even in grieving, I know you guys don't hear our prayers before, but we do pray before. But Leah, you mentioned that about the lament and the grieving. And
Right.
I just think about that. Like I remember thinking and hearing this quote when we had miscarried our first baby, that it said that when you worship in that place, you give a sacrifice you can never give in heaven.
Right.
Because there's no death, there's no sorrow, there's nothing. And like, yet in that situation, instead you turn to him and you give him that hurt, you give him that pain and he weeps with you. Like how powerful that is. So I even think of that like in those hard times of like what the Lord can do through your heart and like how he wants to love you in that too. And like, as you minister to him, he ministers to you
Yeah.
in
Right.
that place. So,
Which gets expressed different ways, you know, like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because mine,
But
let me paraphrase how it was worship too, because that is true. Because people think you're just like singing. I remember literally all I could do was put my face in the Bible and I could just cry. And that's all I could do. And that was my worship to the Lord of like, Abba. And I remember that verse when it says, you cry, Abba, Abba. And literally that's all I could do in that season. And that's all I would say. But honestly, that was probably his favorite worship, right? Because it was like literally a daughter crying to her father. And he would come and like, it wasn't like I literally felt anything, because in that season, honestly, I just felt like I feel nothing. I've been forsaken. But I would be there like, no, but I'm not forsaken. Like you say in your word, I don't care what I feel. And like, I think that was my season of, for me too, of like, okay, Leanna, what are you going to do even when you don't feel it? What are you going to do even when the enemy's like, oh, no, he's not here anymore. See, you don't feel good. Your life isn't good anymore. So he must not be good, right? But then you're like, no, God is good. And like, yeah, not that it was like all that, but it's like in those moments of what you're feeling and laying that before the Lord, it may just look like tears and like nothing is coming out but cries.
Yeah, Leanna, I think that that is so good and so necessary as we're framing our thoughts around worship, because it is not always joyful. It's not always something that bubbles up out of gratitude. This idea that we're talking about, that it's costly. Sometimes it's costly to go there with the Lord in those places that are so hard, so deeply rooted in suffering and pain. But it's like, if we can't go there with the Lord, like
Yeah.
that's the safest place to go. That's the only place I want to be with those thoughts. I don't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah.
You know? And just this idea of like, okay, worship includes all those laments of David. It includes all of those grieving seasons. It just takes a little bit of cost to push back the feelings of, I don't want to go there, Lord. I don't want to feel this.
Yeah.
Just offer that to the Lord. Pay that little price and enter into that place with the Lord and let him minister. Let him be praised and worshiped through that little sacrifice that it took for you to get to that little spot.
right.
You know? I'd love for us to just maybe like share other moments like what Leanna shared of like, when has it been costly for us to actually push past those feelings of whether it be doubt or whatever, boredom, whatever, to go there with the Lord.
Yeah. This may not seem that deep for others, but this was a big deal for me. You know, in the very, very beginning, when I met Leana, I would probably say I was not worshiping the Lord in a way that he deserved to be worshiped. I was so consumed with kind of what people thought. This is pertaining probably actually my life, but pertaining more towards these moments where, you know, I was offering up praises to him or offering up just my life to him. And I remember having these conversations with Leana, and I remember in this moment, I kept on saying, well, I don't want to do anything just to do it. Like I want to really mean it. But then I started thinking, I was like, man, but like he is right now already worthy of that. And I remember wanting, like in my body, like deep down, like wanting to just like throw my hands up and wanting to just cry, but continuing to just like fear what people were going to say. And so I remember thinking like, man, like to me in this moment, this is costly to me because like I'm literally going to throw out my image. I'm going to throw out what people think about me. And, you know, I'm willing to be that undignified person. And that felt like costly to me in that moment. So I remember just like throwing my hands up, and when I did it, it was weird because when I threw my hands up, I felt like this rush come, like a wind come past me. And I remember just my knees felt weak, and it was almost as if like God was just waiting for me, like a kid to his dad lifting his hands up. And when I did it, it felt like something broke in me.
Yeah.
And I remember looking around thinking like, I don't care what any of you think. Like, this is my God, and he saved me from eternal damnation, and he has brought life to me, and he has given me these things, and he's taken away these things. And like, even if he didn't, like, look, this is God, and he's still worthy of my praise. And so I don't know, there was just like, and that's why like we're so big on that, because I feel like there's something in just even like the physical response to just not even just pertaining to just song, but in life, there's like this physical like responses when you can just give praises to him, and when you can lift your hands up, and when you can do these things, there's just like there's a breaking that happens in you. So that was my costly moment, and now I'm just like, I don't know, I'll run around the room.
Now you don't do any costly worship. That was the one time.
That was the one. Now it's all just now it just doesn't cost me anymore. No. But yeah, so that for some may not seem like a big deal, but that in that moment it was to me, as I wanted to just give God something that was really holding me back. So.
Sure,
it's good.
Leanna, you got something brewing over there, don't you?
I do. I just wanted to share, because for some people, like when you're saying that too, it's like the moment you obeyed him.
Yeah.
And people are gonna be like, what do you mean? Like, this isn't scripture. And it's like, no, there's so much scripture of clap your hands, all you nations, shout to God with cries of joy. Psalm 47:1. Psalm 63:4. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. Job 11:13. Yet if you devote your heart to him and stretch out your hands to him. So there's so much about like the obedience behind it. So even just getting this through to like whoever's listening, I mean, maybe we could post these scriptures. I could like post it on our House Fire Instagram for you. But I just want to really encourage you to search out scripture for worship, because there's so much in there about the shouts, the dances, the laying down, like just falling out before him. All of that is so biblical, and I feel there is power in it, because it wouldn't be in his word if there wasn't,
Right.
Yeah.
So good. So good. Why are you looking at me?
Do you have anything you want to share?
Are you just trying to get me to go deep, Leah?
I'm always looking for
Is that
people
what
to
you're
go
trying to do?
deep.
This is what happens. We get in the den, and her and Reese just stare at me, and somehow after like 20 minutes, my soul's laid bare on the floor. I'm like, how did we get here?
Sounds
You know.
costly.
Yeah, it is.
Costly.
Yeah, I was thinking about your question. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of like actual like praise song room moments where I felt like God has like pushed past a lot of things, could reference a lot of those. But as far as just like life, like laying stuff down, like honestly, I feel like at every juncture where God has said, I want you to step out and do something, it has come at a cost that I didn't really expect, you know?
Yeah.
And at moments it was a lot. It was relationships, friendships. It was, my name, things being said, like, just having to trust him in faith on a lot of stuff. And just uncertainty. Like, you don't know when you give a yes, like you were kind of mentioned it earlier, Leana, but like when you give a yes, you don't know what's on the other side. Yeah. So a lot of it is like, man, this is getting really hard. And I haven't seen the full picture and fruit of what you have planned. And you kind of go, why am I still walking in this? Am I, and you question some, and I think like those are the moments where I've really felt, and you've been a part of plenty of them, where we even just come and I'm just having to like unpack the suitcase, right? Where it's like, man, like I don't get it. Like, just laying it all out there.
Right.
And yet God has always been faithful. And I feel like it's kind of that Abraham, Isaac thing we keep going back to, where it's like in the moment, it's like, this doesn't make any sense. And this, I don't want to do this. And this is really hard. And like, people will laugh and probably think certain things about whether this is really the case in my heart. But like, I can tell you, I like even what we're doing now, like even to this day, I struggle with like, I did not want to do this. I do not in many ways want to do that, you know, and to do many of the things that God's been calling us into. And it's a struggle. It's hard. It's costly, but that's, you know, as an act of worship, like you walk through those things and you lay it down and you know that the Lord is good. And we've experienced and seen so much that had we have just packed it, there was a couple moments, but one in particular I can think of where like, you know, it was beforehand on a Sunday here. I'll spare you the details, but like I was getting so much stuff thrown at me that like, I'm talking like people cussing me out, like, you know, the whole thing. I just go there. Maybe I shouldn't have gone there, but, and I called my wife and I'm like, yep, we're done. Like go back to the house. 'Cause everybody's going to go to our house. I'm done with this. I don't need this. And there was a woman there who stopped me and was like, no, take a deep breath. Lord's got it. And we're so glad he did. Because God's, we never, honestly, this is before, we never would have met them.
Yeah.
Had we have done that, you know?
Right.
I just laughed because I was trying to get us to move to Mercy Culture and I wanted to give up. CJ was in the car. I was 9 months pregnant. I was like, I'm done. And he goes, no, like God has called us. Like this was God has called us to. And I think about, we wouldn't have this community. We wouldn't be here. And like, it's so crazy because it is costly, but what the Lord has in store. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
If we would have walked away from this, like if he would have been like, yeah, okay, let's move. It's hard. Let's go.
Right.
Like we would have never encountered all this. And oh no.
I feel like a side of this that we didn't intend to go into, but just like the beauty of worship through suffering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what happens to us when we worship through suffering. Like even as we're talking about these examples, I think of worshiping through chronic illness, through like an actual bout of it.
Right.
Or even like right after I've been sick is like so exhausting and so discouraging. And just getting around the body who worships and reminds me and like I'm stirred up by their prayers or their faith for me, you know, like that's costly when I call out to the Lord, you are faithful, you are good.
Opening your mouth, how much power is there when you open your mouth in those moments and still declare the goodness and the righteousness of God?
He's still good. Ooh. He's still so faithful. And he's still so worthy of our praise and worship. Yeah. Like that pushing past the, oh my gosh, this suffering has been really terrible, and declaring his goodness anyway. That is something that like does stuff to your heart, you know?
Yeah. Would you say too, like, I feel like there's, you know, not everybody, but I think there's a mindset out there of like, as Christians, we're not supposed to suffer.
Right.
And I feel like that is like so contrary to the scriptures that like, it's actually in suffering well that I believe we truly learn what worship is many times. You know what I mean? I mean, you're kind of just sharing that with your own experience, but would you say that that's something that the body maybe lacks is the understanding of how biblical suffering is, you know?
Yeah. We don't understand that God uses suffering for so much good. There is maturity, there is roots that you cannot get any other way.
Yeah. That there's worship that you can learn through suffering that you can't learn with just good times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I've been places where I am barely able to choke out words. I'm just crying so hard through suffering. And that, like, I know you guys have been there too. Like those moments of worship, I feel like are so pleasing to the Lord. That is like the aroma of like intimacy of this moment with my Father where I am like wrestling so hard for his glory, for intimacy with him, for belief down to my very bones that he's still good amidst hard stuff.
which is
Yeah.
David, right? I mean, David in the
Yeah.
Psalms. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
when you talk about musical worship, like David is the, you know, the pinnacle, right? And so many of the Psalms are these, you know, there's so much variance in the Psalms, and but one main component we see is that where it's like, man, things have gone really south.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. Like he'll just raw. Like, I don't get it, Lord. I don't understand it. Where are you? I don't see you. But you know what? In the midst of it,
Yeah.
Yes.
I will praise your name.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Like-
he wasn't afraid to talk about the reality of what he was experiencing. But he always followed up with who his trust is in.
Right.
So he acknowledged the issue,
Right.
Yeah.
but he also acknowledged the one who has the answer. And suffering, that used to be a word that I don't want to talk about that. But when you look at, you know, our life and you say, oh man, like, you know, love where you guys are at, I don't think we'd be where we are right now if it wasn't for, you know, in those moments turning to him
Right.
and him, you know, knowing that he never leaves us, never forsakes us, and that he's worthy. And I don't think that we would be in the area that we're in, doing what we're doing with the people we're doing it with, without that.
Yeah.
And so if you're wanting, if you're listening to this, you know, especially if you're a young believer and you're wanting more, you got to learn to suffer well.
Yeah.
You got to
And
learn
learn
to
how to
suffer well.
suffer with other, or like to walk with those who are suffering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think about how so many times those who are in that, you can't, it's just not a quick fix, you know, and like sometimes we want that, just fix it. And like learning how to walk with people and just like weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. Like I feel there's something very real in that. And sometimes it's like, obviously we don't like seeing the people that we love suffer. I feel like it makes it awkward and weird because we don't know what to do with suffering, but it is a part of the walk that we have to learn, you know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
It's good.
It's very revealing, isn't it? Going through suffering.
Yeah.
Revealing of where we're actually at.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like you're squeezed. What comes out?
Yeah.
Dang.
So good. What do you think? We got time for maybe one more? What's one more question we can land on, or one more thing we can tackle on the topic? What do you think, Leah?
I think we've kind of been dancing around some different things. Our worship. But one thing I've wanted to ask about, like, what do we do with distractions amidst a worship gathering at church? Is being distracted our problem? Is that showing our immaturity or their immaturity? What do we do with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's not black and white again, right? Because I look in the scriptures and I see that they addressed distractions. The one in particular that comes to mind is, you know, and this is a whole other teaching I've talked about before, but you know, the one where he says, hey, women, be silent. And it's in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. Again, in context, you're understanding that there was someone who was uneducated who kept asking questions that was disrupting the gathering and the flow of the gathering. It was so clear that that's what was going on when you jump into their world. And he says, hey, just stop asking those questions and go home and ask them to someone who knows how to answer them and help educate you, because right now you're disrupting the gathering. And he's addressing things in that passage that are disruptions to the gathering. So I think Paul addresses disruptions. You know, if things are disruptions to what is going on, I don't think it's unbiblical at all to address said disruptions. I think there has to be an honor piece that you are honoring God and those around you. You're preferring one another, that like if you're in a place where you're not doing that and it's causing a disruption, it's not honoring God, then I think that you have to address it. You have to disrupt those things. Now there's the other side of this coin. And we've been in places where it's like, you know, a kid makes sneezes and they're like,
Get him out of here.
family room, you know, like
Security.
get them out, you know, and I get the intent of like, hey, because we've had to do a reset with this, right? So it's not like family rooms are bad or like, but if there's a gathering going on and there's not an awareness and a desire to honor what's going on in the room, and there's something that's just continually disrupting, which isn't defined in scripture, so it's not black and white, but I think there is the other side of that coin where, hey, like part of preferring one another, there's the scripture where it says to prefer one another and outdo one another in showing honor. I think this is part of it. Like if I'm going to prefer the other people in the room, I don't want to just be knowingly distracting everyone in there from what God is actively doing. That's not preferring one another. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think there's biblical precedent on both sides. That's my
Yes.
2 cents.
Yeah. I have a story. We actually were doing house fires.
I bet we got a lot of stories.
Yeah, we
I was
do.
like, which one are you going to say?
Where do I start? No. We were doing house fires at Sozo Coffee House downtown. We did it like 3 times in a row. And I remember I don't even know if it was the last one, which is probably why we stopped doing it there. But there was just this very casual, dishonoring distraction in the room where we were in the middle of lifting, high exaltation to God. And there were people having conversation. They were just talking. They were kind of coming in and out. And there was in my heart, felt like a very dishonoring piece to, in the moment that we were trying to really just focus on the Lord. And I struggled with it in the back as I was trying to process, God, what do you want me to do in this moment? And I remember right in the middle of worship, I don't know if you guys remember me doing this, but came up to the front, got on the little platform and grabbed the microphone and basically stopped everything. And I said, I do not want to move forward until we address this because there is so much casualness and dishonor in the room right now. And he is worthy of our attention and he is worthy of our praise in this moment. And I remember just the look on people's faces. And in my eyes, I felt like I was going to throw up because I'm like, this is tough. But I feel like when there is that, I think the most loving thing to do is to address it. Because in my mind, I'm thinking it's not just about them, in their heart posture right now towards it, but it's how you can pull someone else's focus off the Lord onto the distractions in the room. And so now you're causing someone else in the room who was focusing on God to now be distracted and they're focusing on other things. And so And so after that, we prayed, we stopped, and then we started pressing in again. And there was a shift in the room where people were focusing now. Like there was like a fear of the Lord on the room. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Now I've preached a lot too about how I think sometimes we have this culture of like, you have to remove all distractions. Otherwise you can't quote unquote worship. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, go out in the world. Like you're going to have a ton of distractions. Like if you can't worship through distraction, that's on you, to a degree. So I think there's that element of it a bit, but yeah, I mean, you go to third world countries. I remember we were in Haiti, like, you didn't have this clean, sterile environment where there was just you got babies are sitting on the laps and,
Animals.
now the kids handle themselves, much different than here, but you got, animals are doing their thing. It's hot. It's, like all this stuff. Like it was not the perfect environment for me to focus. Right. But they can worship through those distractions where I can't, in America, it's like, if it's not 72 degrees in the room or lower, like, I can't, it's so hot in here. Like, we got to push past some of that stuff and grow up a little bit. Right.
Yeah.
So true.
So this is where it's everything.
Yeah.
It's honor the Lord, honor one another. Don't create and be a distraction. Prefer one another in that. If there's just a blatant thing, address it. While at the same point, like, let's get a little hardened Christians. Like, let's not worry about every single noise that's made because it quote unquote inhibits me from entering in. That's your problem,
Yeah.
So
So good. So good.
there you go.
Anything else we want to add before we leave? Oh, do you want to share that quote?
It's totally irrelevant. It's nothing to do.
Okay.
I mean, I can read it. Just
I'm curious now, though.
all right. I'll read. This is Tozer. Like
He had it bookmarked. He
I
was
did.
ready to go.
I was ready. Well, he told me. Like, hey, we should read
He's
it.
like, it's
like,
not
I
a
don't
habit,
have to,
but
no,
I
that's
have
fine,
to.
guys. Okay, here we go.
Okay, fine. If you really want me
Don't
to.
pull my arm.
We'll land on this quote. How's that sound?
Okay.
Tozer has many quotes on worship, but he says, "We have everything but worship these days. A man you can't get to a prayer meeting will sit on the board and decide how much money the church spends. You can't get him to a prayer meeting because he's not a worshiper. He's just a fellow who runs the church. It seems to me that it has always been a frightful incongruity that men who do not pray and who do not worship are nevertheless able to run the church and determine the direction it will take. No man has any right to debate an issue or vote on it unless he is a praying man. We tend to let the women do the praying and the men do the voting.
Wow.
Woo!
Okay.
Bringing
I
it.
feel like that was good
Yeah.
to drop that
Good.
and just be like, all right.
Has
Good.
no relevance to. I mean,
Did
it
we
does,
say what
but
book that was from?
that
in case
was
people
from?
wanna
There's
read
actually a really good book. Yeah, Tozer has a book, Worship and Entertainment. Well, it's not his book. It's basically a collection of his sermons on worship and entertainment. It's called Tozer on Worship and Entertainment. So, super good if you ever get a chance. Check it out.
Yeah.
But
I feel like that just spurs us on to be actual worshipers.
Yeah.
Right. Like let's not come into church pretending that we know all the things, that we have something to offer when our private life is not just worship with the Lord.
Yep.
Right.
go
Yeah,
low.
so good.
Yes.
Gotta go
Keep
low.
going low.
So,
Amen.
yep.
Well,
Amen.
Amen. So,
Sounds good. Well, we got another topic that we probably could go for many more hours on, but we hope and pray that the Lord used it to spark some things in you. We pray that you would live a lifestyle of worship, which is offering yourself as a living sacrifice unto the Lord, and watch what He does when you do that. So
yeah.
Let's go.
And we would love to hear your guys' feedback. Share this podcast. Yeah, we'd love to hear some. I have had many messages from you guys of different topics and different things that you guys would love for us to chat about. Things that maybe are not talked about as much, and then other areas which are somewhat controversial. But I think those are. I'm loving the response, guys, and so appreciate y'all. And yeah.
if you have good things to say, you can tell me. If you have negative things, direct them all to CJ. Be happy to handle those going forward. Yeah, if you like it, subscribe, comment. Would love the feedback. Would love you guys to follow along with us if you can on whatever platform you are listening on.
Yes.
So we appreciate your time and be blessed.